An elementary school principal allegedly threw a party at her own house where over 100 kids showed up and were drinking. As if that wasn't bad enough, a teacher from the school was found partying right alongside the students, or allegedly partying, and now both are facing some serious charges. I'm going to talk with acclaimed veteran journalist Ashleigh Banfield to get to the bottom of this wild story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Everybody, this is a Law and Crime.
Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. So recent allegations against legal sponsors are taking on the industry that has allegedly at many times put profit over safety, and they're working to potentially get compensation for all of those impacted. So if you or a loved one have suffered physical or mental health issues due to video games, visit vgclaims.com/sidebar to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. All right, so this is a story that sounds like it's
working to potentially get compensation for all of those impacted. So if you are a loved one, have suffered physical or mental health issues due to video games, visit VGC/S sidebar to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. All right, so this is a story that sounds...
There was a juvenile who was experiencing what has been described as, quote, an alcohol-related medical event. Now, the principal who supposedly threw this party is, shocker, facing charges, but also along with one of the school's teachers who was allegedly partying with the kids. So I want to start at the beginning of what is truly a bizarre story. It all went down apparently on the night of January 19th. By the way, a Sunday, no less, a school night, by the way. Anyway.
Charges, but also along with one of the school's teachers who is allegedly partying with the kids. So I want to start at the beginning of what is truly a bizarre story. It all went down apparently on the night of January 19th. By the way, a Sunday, no less, a school night, by the way. Anyway, when police in Cocoa Beach, Florida, received reports of this wild party at the home of Roosevelt Elementary School principal 47-year-old Elizabeth Hill-Brodigan. According to the arrest affidavit that was obtained by Law and Crime, she was initially called by police, said that she was down the street. She would handle the loud music. She would shut the music down by 10 p.m.
Matching t-shirts, not really sure what that's about, but yes, there was alcohol at the party, plenty of it. Coolers filled with booze were apparently scattered around the yard. The teens were drinking openly. According to the affidavit, there was also marijuana there too. Now, before I get into more of the alarming and strange details about this, including discussing the charges, not only for Hill-Brodigan, but also that other teacher, I want to bring back on to Sidebar award-winning veteran journalist Ashleigh Banfield, host of a brand new podcast called Drop Dead Serious, anchor of Banfield on NewsNation. Ashleigh, so good to see you. I heard the podcast is doing amazing. Wouldn't expect anything less. Is this a story that you plan to cover on there?
You know what? Eventually, yes. But I'm in the middle, as I just launched the podcast, of dropping episodes for the series Uncle Peter. So once those are all dropped, and there are 6 parts, then we'll start getting into news of the week. And this would have been a highlight for sure.
I imagine that a question you will probably ask a lot on your show is, what were they thinking? What was she thinking? I mean, if these allegations are true, what is a principal of a school doing here?
I kept thinking how boring my teachers were. I never had any of this stuff.
If these allegations are true, what is a principal of a school doing here? I kept thinking how boring my teachers were. I never had any of this stuff. And I also keep thinking about how in this very long career I've had in crime and justice, how often, Jesse, I've been covering teachers who are either doing stupid stuff like this or having affairs. And it's just the most bizarre, repetitive story where you have this young, usually very attractive teacher who thinks it's okay to have sex with her, 6th, 7th, and 10th grade students. In cars, in janitor lockers, in.
It just keeps happening. And I'm like, do they watch the news?
Yeah, and let's be clear, right? There's no allegations of that coming out, with respect to this party, but you study the criminal psyche. How many times do you ask if something like this, is this a case of poor judgment, or is there something deeper going on with these kinds of criminal defendants?
Look, I'm not an educator. I'm a communicator, right? But I know full well with
and perils of having their friends over, and if those friends are drinking either knowingly or unknowingly, I am liable. And so I just know this as a parent. I'm not even a teacher. I am not a principal. So I'm really astounded, not only that she had students to her home, a judgment, B, that there was alcohol present, C, that it was a repetitive party, meaning they had these parties frequently and it was premeditated. and planned. All it seems as though the evidence points to the fact that the matching t-shirts. Is that what you think the t-shirts are about? I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I get the impression again. I would really like to read deeper into the case once they start taking interviews and after, and I think this will more than likely go to trial unless she takes
t-shirts.
Is that what you think the t-shirts are about? I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I get the impression again. I would really like to read deeper into the case once they start taking interviews and affidavits, and I think this will more than likely go to trial unless she takes a deal. But yeah, this was sort of like team party, and it was, again, a regular occurrence. And then there was a third grade teacher who was also part of this. And P.S., these are elementary school educators, principal of an elementary school and a third grade teacher. These are the two people charged so far. And they're having teenagers over. So what the connection is, I am unclear, but it is weird. It is inappropriate at the least, and it is criminal potentially at the worst.
Yeah, and we're not entirely sure what the ages are, right? They've been referred to as minors or juveniles, so we'll get maybe a whole more details.
Well, somebody was driving, right?
So somebody was driving, right? Let me lay out some of the facts here, and we'll break it down. So this is a party that took a very dark turn because officers reportedly found one kid on the front lawn, who I mentioned before was so intoxicated to the point of needing medical attention. According to the affidavit, this detective said, quote, he found a male juvenile vomiting and shaking in Elizabeth Hill-Brodigan's front yard at 23:41 hours. So that's 11:41 p.m.
11:41 p.m. and it's a school night.
Yeah, it's a Sunday. I don't know what's going on here. But the detective went on to say that when paramedics arrived to treat this minor, Hill-Brodigan apparently did something very bizarre. According to the affidavit, once Brevard County Fire Rescue arrived on scene, Elizabeth Hill-Brodigan walked out of her residence, stood at the top of her driveway. She then walked inside and turned off all the lights in the front of her house. So according to reporting from NBC 15, that left these responders to use their auxiliary lighting to treat the teen. So I imagine maybe headlights on the fire truck. What does that tell you, Ashleigh?
Well, so many things. If the allegations are true, the judgment is stupefyingly horrendous. Number two, I think it warrants another charge, honestly. Hindering medical care, hindering first response, that kind of thing. Maybe even interfering with an investigation, because all of that will be part of an investigation, right? Number three, I smell a civil suit. That kids' parents should be drawing up, calling Morgan & Morgan, whoever the heck is their nearest billboard for a personal injury lawyer. And C, I'm still curious about the potential liabilities of the school district, because they've got the deepest pockets, right? I'm sure that Ms. Brodigan doesn't make a whole lot of money as a principal, but school district does. And if there's any communications, anything on her official school account, whether the school district, I mean, you're a lawyer, you know this, whether they have any knowledge at all of any of these events going on, man, that's going to be just a windfall for these parents. And not just the ones with the injured kids. I think the kids who were there too.
It's interesting you mentioned the parents. So first of all, yeah, from a legal point of view, a lot of times you see the lawsuits against the school district for negligent hiring. You should have done the proper background check on these individuals. Did you? But, you talk about the parents. Obviously, there are parents who are involved here who are probably shocked at what they're learning. But how much responsibility, you mentioned this before, how much responsibility is on the part of the parents to know what your kids are up to and where they're going?
A lot. I'm militant about my kids, and I have never allowed them out on school nights. I'm sorry, I just don't. There's nothing good that can come at 11 o'clock at night on a school night. And that's hard to say when your kid is 17, 18 years old. But if you're 18, you're legal, it's different. These kids, by all accounts, so far we're finding were not, they were not the age majority. So it's not illegal to let your kid out to go over to their friend's house to study, right? Maybe that's what some of them tell their parents. I don't know. That's not alleged in this series of facts. But I still disagree wholeheartedly with any parent who allows their kid out at 11:45 at night on a school night. It just doesn't make sense. Now, does that mean that they won't prevail in a civil suit? Hell to the no. The allegations against Ms. Brodigan are a heck of a lot more serious than letting your kid go out of the house at 11:45 on a school night.
Yeah, it's alarming because you have this report of one child who got sick. You have another officer, by the way, who conducted, as you mentioned, a traffic stop, arrested a minor who is leaving this party for driving under the influence. And then 45-year-old Carly Anderson. So this is the other teacher. So Carly Anderson was apparently drunk, is also a third grade teacher at Roosevelt Elementary School. And when I say drunk, by the way, according to the affidavit, she was at this party acting reportedly bizarrely because as paramedics worked on this sick kid who was in the front lawn, the detective reported, quote, the defendant began to walk up and berate, this is again Carly Anderson, the defendant began to walk up and berate Brevard County Fire Rescue. The defendant advised that she was upset because a child was being put, quote, in a machine and stated that she was a teacher. Corporal Brown told the defendant that there were 200 kids at the residence drinking. The defendant interrupted Corporal Brown and yelled that she knew that already. The defendant's speech was slow and slurred. She also had mood swings between angry and calm multiple times during this brief interaction. By the way, naturally, both Hill-Brodigan and Anderson, they were arrested after police interviewed numerous minors and parents. And according to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Hill-Brodigan faces charges for child neglect, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and hosting an open house party with alcohol. Anderson also charged with child neglect and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And Ashleigh, I want your perspective on this because when police spoke with Anderson, reportedly the next day on the phone, apparently she denied partying with the kids, but she said, look, Hill-Brodigan, she invited me out for a drink that night. By the way, she wouldn't agree to a sworn statement. She said that her phone call with police better not be recorded. So the question now is she just, a passive, unassuming guest, or did she play more of a role here?
Well, it sounds to me like she fully admitted that she knew there were 200 kids at the house because she said, I know that already. If she was so passive, she would have said, I'm not sure what's going on here. I just arrived. And if she weren't hammered, she may have made better choices than to, utter all of those very indicting things that she did. Also, once again, you are not allowed to interfere with officials who are performing the duties of first responders. There are all sorts of different charges. The codes are different in different cities and all the rest, but I'm surprised that that isn't part of this. I don't think that as a third grade teacher, she's shown any good judgment. Being drunk around any students is bad judgment, no matter what time you arrived.
And this part's interesting because there were students who reported that Hill-Brodigan had also allegedly asked her son to stop the party at one point. So seemingly he was there, but apparently he didn't listen. And that's interesting because apparently Anderson had told police that, quote, her friend's kid did what he did. Now that stopped me when I read it because actually I'm wondering, is there an argument that her son threw a party, she didn't know about it, she couldn't stop him? I mean, it doesn't sound to be quite consistent with the rest of the officers' accounts were, but that kind of threw a little bit of an oddball there.
Let me just tell you about a case I covered, I think 20 years ago in Florida. I think it's the clarion call for anyone watching right now who has kids. Very nice couple had an underage minor, and it was a graduation party. And I think he was 16 or 17. And they said, okay, you can have the graduation party outside in our backyard, but there's some rules. No alcohol. Everybody leaves by 11, and I want a guest list. This is what the parents did. I'm even not that strict about my friends, my kids' friends coming over, but they did. They got the guest list. They told kids that they had to give their keys, that they were bringing cars, and they were going to check them all as they left to make sure that everybody had adhered to the rules and that they could take their keys and drive away. Midway through the party, parents and mom and mom's friend are there to stay and monitor the party. They're at the home, right? Midway through the party, they shut down the music. They get wind that maybe some of the kids brought some alcohol and were going down to the waterfront because they were on a waterfront and drinking down there, had alcohol in their backpacks, told the kids, pour them all out. Watched the kids pour the alcohol out into the grass, read them the riot act and said, that is it. If there's one more instance like this, you are all out of here. Second instance, they find again, some kids still kept some alcohol. Maybe they'd stashed it or something or other. They shut the party down, just like they promised. And they said, okay, you guys are all leaving. Party's over. You broke the rules. And let me check each one of you as you go by. They checked each kid. Most kids were either walking or getting rides, but there were some kids who had their own vehicles. One of the kids is 16 and he's got 3 of his friends in the car. Seems fine to the parents. They give him the keys. He takes off and he's 16 years old. He got a brand new Mustang from his parents. And he decides to show his other friends in the car how fast this Mustang can go. Pins it to 100 and jams right through a stop sign in a rural road and kills a young French student who's in the back of a car with another two students and an uncle. They're all going out to a movie. I think they're 12, 13, 14 years old. Everybody in that car is injured. The French exchange student is killed. That 16-year-old went to prison, was charged as an adult, even though he wasn't 08, but he was at the limit for a minor. So he's charged as an adult, but they take the standard of a minor of alcohol and send him to prison for, I want to say, 9 years. The injured parties sue those parents, and that goes to trial. And the parents lost everything. They lost their home, they lost their business, they lost everything just trying to defend themselves in the case. It all came down to the reasonability of the jury. Did the jury believe that these parents did a reasonable effort at trying to curtail the underage drinking on their property? In the end, they did prevail, but not before they'd lost everything. And it could have gone either way. It could have been even worse, but they lost everything just trying to defend themselves. So the cautionary tale. If you got a kid, if Principal Brevard had a kid, it is your responsibility. Period. End of story. I don't care. If you got to take a pitchfork and push people out of your house, then it's up to you to do it.
But you've highlighted the danger, which I think is so important because it gets lost in the bizarre aspect of this. So, by the way, Hill-Brodigan, according to the affidavit, had initially agreed to provide a sworn statement, backtracked on that. But when police ended up speaking with the students 2 days after this alleged party, they confirmed that there were more than 100 students there. And that these parties happen once or twice a month. So if you're thinking about, these young people getting behind the wheel or what might end up happening, look at the medical event that happened. But that's not even, the scariest part. Because yes, there was alcohol there. Yes, there was marijuana there, allegedly. There was also fights. But then it was in the report. There was a video recording, apparently, of a minor with a handgun pointing it at another person. So when we think about what the danger is here and what could have happened if this was happening on a regular basis, that is one of the biggest red flags and most alarming aspects of this story, Ashleigh.
Well, listen, and we don't know if that was a real weapon, but I think that there is a lot of potential here for further charges endangering the lives of kids. I mean, that's literally what you're doing if you're providing an outlet for a whole bunch of kids to get together on your premises and one of them brings out a handgun and endangers the lives of other kids. That is child endangerment. Now, can they prove that that was the gun? I don't know if they're investigating. I don't know if they found that kid. I don't know if they went to that kid's house and discovered the gun and were able to match it to the one in the video. I don't know. But I mean, it's a ripe area for
a minor, so he's charged as an adult. But they take the standard of a minor of alcohol and send him to prison for, I want to say, 9 years. The injured parties sue those parents, and that goes to trial, and the parents lost everything. They lost their home. They lost their business. They lost everything just trying to defend themselves in the case. It all came down to the reasonability of the jury. Did the jury believe that these parents did a reasonable effort at trying to tail the underage drinking on their property? In the end, they did prevail, but not before they'd lost everything, and it could have gone either way. It could have been even worse, but they lost everything just trying to defend themselves. So the cautionary tale: if you got a kid, if Prin Brand had a kid, it is your responsibility. Period. End of story. I don't care if you've got to take a pitchfork and push people out of your house. It's up to you to do it. But you've highlighted the danger, which I think is so important because it gets lost in the bizarre aspect of this. So, by the way, Hill-Brodigan, according to the affidavit, had initially agreed to provide a sworn statement, backtracked on that, but when police ended up speaking with the students 2 days after this alleged party, they confirmed that there were more than 100 students there, and that these parties happened once or twice a month. So if you're thinking about, these young people getting behind the wheel or what might end up happening, look at the medical event that happened. But that
are fully cooperating with the Cocoa Beach Police Department. Our commitment to student safety remains our top priority. And in a letter to families, Brevard County Superintendent Dr. Mark Randall said, "I'm very troubled by the information that CBPD has shared with the district. We hold our leaders to the highest standards. And if these allegations are true, it's a complete failure in leadership and violation of our trust. The district is cooperating fully with police as they investigate this matter and will strive to provide families with full transparency." I don't know what else they could say. They're in a tough spot, but I mean, you tell me.
Well, again, you can't be responsible for your employees everywhere they are, right? But if there is even
child endangerment, now can they prove that that was the Gun, I don't know if they're investigating, I don't know if they found that kid, I don't know if they went to that kid's house and discovered the gun and were able to match it to the one in the video, I don't know, but I mean it's a ripe area for so many things to come down on that principal's head, and just knowing what I saw in that one case, there was a wrongful death suit against them because of the dead party and the injured party. There were other parents that sued those parents just because that they'd had underage drinking on their property unbeknownst to them even when they put out the rules. So I'm just saying that the bar is so high, that it is really it's so sad to say this, it's really not worth your while having a party for your kids at your home. You're just liable for anything and everything, yeah, and it's two narratives here, whether her son threw it and she just looked the other way, who didn't know, or she yeah, it doesn't matter, and what's so alarming about this is that according to reporting from the Miami Herald, Hill-Brodigan, longtime educator, the outlet reported that biography Teacher of the Year, she various level right, so she was awarded Teacher of the Year. She had been working for a long time. Anderson, according to her LinkedIn profile, had been teaching in the school system since 2006, which again, it just makes you wonder how they got wrapped up in this. I wanted your final.
Thank you so much for coming on. And real quick, tell everybody where they can check out the pod, Drop Dead Serious.
Yep, go to dropdeadserious.com. Not only is it a regular podcast, it's a 6-part series. I've dropped 2 episodes already, dropping another one on Thursday and every week after that. But it's also on YouTube, and it's really worth checking out on YouTube because I got a lot of exclusive videos and pictures from the vault of Peter Nygard, who is possibly one of the worst sex predators ever to roam the planet at this point. And he was famous for his really naked parties with feathers and body paint. And so we have all these images. So not safe for work, not safe for kids, but really stunning visuals and stunning artifacts and stunning,